When was the last time you opened your mouth only to discover your shoe size? We all have moments when we speak more hastily than is wise, and true, many of these times are quite harmless. We don't always put our foot in it. But what happens about those times when we do? What's going on? And how do we reduce the times when it happens? There are various factors that can contribute to hasty speech. Some are just events that can conspire against us together in a particular moment. But what if you find this happening more frequently than you're comfortable with? Or do you notice yourself doing this in particular kinds of situations? Well, here's some of the people characteristics that can contribute to people speaking in haste. Do any of these sound like you? Are you someone who likes other people to be happy? Being a people pleaser can have negative connotations of being someone just looking for an easy life or always taking the path of least resistance. At its very, very worst, it can be an indicator of a deeply insecure person, someone who only feels safe when they give other people what they want. There is a more positive side to this. You may be the kind of person for whom it's really important that other people are happy. It's important to you that they feel safe, that they feel valued and are at ease. Whatever the mix of factors here, you may find yourself saying yes to requests that really aren't so good, either for you or for them. If, for example, you make a promise you can't deliver, you're not doing anyone any favours. Then again, you might be someone who speaks in haste because you're always in a hurry. You like to be busy, you like to have a lot going on. And saying yes to people is your default response because it gives you more to do, more to be responsible for. And that's where you feel fulfilled and find yourself at your best. On the other hand, we all have limits to our capacity. Overfill a jug, you get a puddle. How aware are you that you're getting too close to one refill too many? Then there are people who speak hastily for other reasons. Have you ever given an answer to someone, yes, no or otherwise, without realising what you were responding to? Perhaps you have a tendency to get distracted, and more often than this is healthy, to speak without listening. Okay, you may have developed a certain knack of talking your way out of situations that you've inadvertently talked your way into. But let's face it, it's a dangerous game to play. Or do you have a tendency to respond quickly when you're irritated or annoyed? You may not even be annoyed or irritated with the person you're speaking to at the time. They just happen to be the most recent person to be speaking to you when your frustration tumbles out all over them. What then can we do about all this? I was reading a quote recently a friend of mine posted on Facebook with the simple headline, "Practice the pause." It's one of those little turns of phrase which, if you take some time to play with it and reflect on it, can give you access to all kinds of helpful ideas. If you practice the pause, then you're someone who's got into the habit of taking a moment before replying. Thinking it through a bit, it's clear that practice can only become a practice through practice. Good life skills are best developed in situations when you don't particularly need them, so that they become second nature when you do need to use them. So how about taking some time this week to practice the pause? The next time you're in conversation and someone asks you to make a decision, however obvious, just take a moment before we reply. And when I say take a moment, I mean take the moment. Don't just build in a hiatus between the question and your reply. Really take hold of that brief moment before speaking. How does it feel? What can you hear? What do you notice in that moment? You may discover that the blindingly obvious answer you were going to give isn't quite so blindingly obvious after all. Now, clearly you won't want to hesitate before every single answer you give, but if you start to cultivate the habit by periodically practicing the pause, then when you find yourself in those situations when speaking in haste really isn't quite such a smart move, you'll find that being able to give yourself a moment, this won't seem quite so strange, won't seem quite so uncomfortable as perhaps it does now. So why not add another life skill to the many you have already and practice the pause?